Welcome to another episode of Progress, Potential, and Possibilities, discussions with fascinating people designing a better tomorrow for all of us. I'm your host, Ira Pastor.
Welcome, everybody, again to another episode of our show, bringing you another really amazing guest today, helping to create a better tomorrow for many people out there. Today, we have the honor of being joined by the Honorable Dr. Aminata Touré, 2024 Senegal presidential candidate, former Prime Minister of Senegal, one of the only two females to ever hold that position, as well as former Justice Minister of Senegal, where she was heavily focused on fighting corruption. She was at one point a special envoy to President Macky Sall for internal external affairs, and has served in presidential election observation missions, including those in Mauritius, Côte d'Ivoire, Liberia, and Kenya, where she co-led the first round of election observations on behalf of the Carter Center with then U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry. She's also held the position of Harvard Kennedy School Fisher Family Fellow with the Future of Democracy Project. Additionally, Dr. Touré was director of the Gender and Human Rights World Department of the United Nations Population Fund in New York, as well as senior advisor at their headquarters in Côte d'Ivoire and also in Burkina Faso. Dr. Touré is passionate about areas including economic development, good governance, and gender. Fluent in multiple languages, she has led more than 30 United Nations Population Fund worldwide publications and holds a Ph.D. in International Business Administration and Finance from the International School of Management in both New York and Paris. She also studied in France, where she got her MBA, University Dijon Business School, and Masters in Economics from Marseille University. A lot of very interesting topics to get into with her today. We're honored to have her. Dr. Aminata Touré, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show.
Thank you for having me.
It's wonderful to have you. I would love to start off, in reading all about you. I see that you grew up in a family that was heavily focused in public health. Your father a doctor, your mother a midwife. Talk a little bit about sort of the early days and how you ended up in economics and focusing initially, of course, on doing a dissertation on microfinance in sub-Saharan Africa.
Well, and my sister also got into public health because she's an immunologist. I mean, she worked for many years as a researcher. But maybe that's the problem. That's why maybe I didn't follow that that field. I wanted to be original. I wanted to follow my own course. As a matter of fact, what brought me into economy is observation. I was always asking myself as a young child why people are poor. It's been my question, why people couldn't live the way we were living, because we were, categorized as the high middle class. And for me, it was, why is it so that, other people would be poor? Mm-hmm. And my response came through, economics. And I do believe that, until you get your economic dignity, it's difficult to be dignified. So it became very, very clear to me that if we want to lift up, human beings, you have to make sure that they have decent standard of living. Of course, among which health and education and all of that, but it comes with money everywhere. Yeah. So economic, we know that. We know that when we have an economic crisis, how important it is to be able to sustain yourself and to live a decent life. That's what brought me to economics, and until now, that's my major area of interest. And looking from the bottom up, that's why microfinance was a special area where I wanted to research and see how, with little fund, is it possible to lift women up and get them out of poverty.
Excellent. Outstanding. And yeah, when one goes to the United Nations Population Fund website, your picture comes up, and there's a quote, if I may read, everywhere you go, as you were just saying, people want to live decent lives. They want to express themselves. They want to participate. They want to have health. They want their kids to have a better future. And I thought we could sort of talk about to each of these items. I'd love to start off, while you were chief in the Gender, Human Rights, and Culture branch at the UN Population Fund, you published a series of papers, basically focusing on, again, the connection between microfinance, the empowerment of women, and health. And really making this extremely, as you were saying in the reports, this very intimate link between poverty, poor health, and inequality. Talk a little bit about that particular era and some of the things that you learned there in terms of the relationship and the potential of microfinance in those particular situations for both reproductive health and preventing HIV, which is what a lot of this was focused on.
Yes, I want to first pay tribute to all, the authors of those articles, because I was coordinating, and, very brilliant people contributed to those publications. It is very clear, it is established, and we wanted to bring about the evidence, because it's very important to bring the scientific evidence. So we sort of research and show very clearly that poverty is the source of most of, as I put it, undignified status of human beings.
Yep.
Let's make it simple. In Africa, there is a research showing that women would like to have very lower fertility rates. In many places, they would not like to have more than 3 children. But if you go to some, places, the average of kids per woman might be 6 or 7, just because they don't have access to family planning. Yeah. Why don't they have access to family planning? Because the services are not there, or they are so far away that they don't have enough money to travel regularly to go and pick up their contraceptive. It's kind of a chicken and egg type of situation. So poverty fuel on a permanent basis all the inabilities for people to realize their rights. A lot of young girls would not go to school because school is too far. There is no transportation means to get them there. The parents are poor. They cannot pay for the school supplies, and they end up, dropping from school. You can go on and on and on and on. Women who would be pregnant, they need a C-section. The hospital is too far away. The village they come from, is very far from the hospital. No transportation means, no ambulance, and they end up, losing their life and their babies. So for me, it was very clear that we need really economic growth, but well-distributed economic growth, because you may have countries with, very high GDP, but you would find also a very large cohort of poor people. One of the most inequal countries in the world is Brazil, but Brazil would be categorized as a quote-unquote advanced country. But in the USA, we know that the development, what we call the Human Development Index, when you combine, education, access to services, etc., the index is lower among Black population, Spanish population, etc. So definitely the economy define mostly who we are, what our future is going to be, and that's where we really need to work work very hard to make sure that the economy is fair. It's not necessarily fair to everyone. When you are an African farmer, as I said, you may not have the same chance as somebody who live in urban settings, for instance. For all I have said previously, access to services, access to opportunities, access to education, and that's where we really need to make sure that to make our economy smarter, which means that we need to work to lift all the inequalities that prevent people from enjoying, economic prospect, especially when it comes to women. I have a particular interest in women because they, on the top of the situation I have described, they have to fight stigma, cultural stigma, in gender inequalities, gender-based violence. So we need to pay a particular attention to their rights and to their needs too.
Absolutely, absolutely. One of the in addition to the many roles that I mentioned in the bio, one of the areas that you served in Senegal was the Economic, Social, and Environmental Council, and you were also a member of the Director General's High-Level Reflection Group at UNESCO. And you wrote this piece, and at the time you're talking about sort of the words you used, the world being plagued by middle-aged attitudes, and you were just expressing some of those. It's interesting because whether it's public health, childbirth, a lot of things we're talking, or more extreme areas. And I'll just mention one, for instance. I did a show with Mr. Bakari Tandia from Mauritania nearby, and talking a lot about this problem they have with slavery still in their country, which in a 2023 world, for I'm sitting here on the East Coast of the United States, is hard to understand. Talk a little bit about your time at UNESCO, specifically in this particular area, and some of the sort of the middle-aged stuff that you were seeing that really concerned you. And that was just one example, obviously near Senegal, not to, of course, but say a little bit about this, if you would.
Well, let me tell you an example of middle-aged attitude right where you are in the United States.
Please.
It's girls trafficking, child trafficking in such an advanced country is an issue.
Yeah.
Well, it's not far from slavery. It is slavery. It is even labeled as modern slavery. Right. And as we know, thousands of girls are being taken into the United States for trafficking. Yeah. So this is right there an example of middle-aged, issues.
Yeah.
That's the same that we are seeing in some places in Africa. Sometimes it's boys, very young, brought into agricultural work in Côte d'Ivoire or in Benin. They would mostly be taken from Benin and brought into the cocoa plantation to work, be as young as 6 or 7. So this is the world we live in. Very advanced when it comes to technology, very advanced for some part of the world, and within those countries even you do have subgroups that live like in the Middle Age that suffer from Middle Age plagues, I would say. So the issue of equality between countries and within countries, because that issue tend to be hidden under the carpet.
Yeah.
in very developed countries. You do have also groups that really suffer from brutal violation of their rights right there. illegal migrants working hours with no working rights. We talk about trafficking. We should talk about violence against women. Why am I bringing the issue from developed countries and developing countries is that we need to make links. We need to build the bridges. Right. Nobody is, foreigner to what I'm saying. In every single country of the world, you would find groups, large or small, whom rights are violated on a constant basis. And most of the time, it would start by being women, children's, migrant population, etc. We know those groups. So the whole point of talking to you in your show is to sort of unify our fight against, violation of human rights for all human beings. That's the point I'm making. Because some people would believe, oh, I'm in France, I'm in Sweden, this is none of my business. No, it's happening under your nose. You just don't know. And I'm following with great joy all the campaigns on ending, woman and child trafficking in the United States. I think those who are developing those campaigns needs to be applauded because we would not expect that, but it's happening right there. So that's, for me, we need to really build sort of worldwide coalition, on these issues, because I do believe that we are one human race, whether we are brown, green, yellow, and we do have the same human rights, and we need to get together in order to dignify it, the race we belong to, all of us. That gives me the opportunity to really, really, really say how scandalized I was by the statement of the president of Tunisia, who, made very racist rhetorics against, sub-Saharan migrants. That is the type of leadership that we don't want to see. Right. Precisely. I'm sorry, but in the United States also, we heard President Trump also, treating African countries as shithole countries. I'm not even to go about it. That's what he said. So we need to build alternative leadership to those leaders making shameful statement and giving really the worst example of leadership. That's why I'm very active in facilitating, linkages, north, south, east, west, because we need alternative voices to sort of inspire the next generation and make sure that we will take the human race forward. I think it's important. That's what history is all about. And we have all to contribute to history.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I appreciate making those parallels that we don't, once again, normally think out, right in our own neighborhood. So thank you for that. So we talked a bit about economic development, of gender, of equity issues. But when one Googles Dr. Aminata Touré, the one thing that comes up and something that you're passionate about but makes you very, very angry is corruption. And in your previous roles and obviously in your current role, you are very focused on unrooting the seeds of corruption, no matter where they flare. Talk a little bit about sort of your interest in eliminating the scourge that is corruption. And then I've been following a little bit of your Twitter lately, talking about sort of issues with the COVID funding in different countries. Say a few words about this issue, if you would.
It's very much linked to my my commitment to human rights, because when you are in a country defined as resource-limited country, aka poor country, the whole issue is about where we're gonna put the resources. The priorities, are overwhelming, and the resources are limited. So when you're condemning some people to die. We talk about, women who don't have access to emergency services because there is no money. So the impact of corruption in a poor country is just, dramatic. Some countries can afford it, but we definitely cannot. So we have to make sure that what we have go to really life-saving activities, promoting education, and making sure that people, have a minimum of standards of living. So that's what I believe in. So if you don't have enough, and then we're taking out of that pot for private purposes, we're not going to make it. So it's a matter of die or die, live or die. So we have to make sure that, and when it comes in big scale, well, the impact is catastrophic. We have some countries that are wealthy, but the people are poor. So the only reason is that there's not one sole reason, but corruption is one of them. Right. But I also want to say very clearly that African people are not the most corrupt people on earth. That's not true. Because the scandal that we have in rich country in terms of volume, we don't necessarily have it in Africa. What we lack, though, in Africa is mechanism to prevent it and to fight it. And that we have to build it. It's very important, put in place mechanism that we prevent people from accessing digitalization. If you digitalize services, you avoid the contact face-to-face between civil servant and the regular citizen. You might alleviate the issue of corruption. We have to do regular audit, annual audit, for all services. We have to invest in those areas, and it's possible. That's maybe where we need to sort of escalate, our game. But all human beings are the same. If you don't put the rules, well, they take advantage of the system. So we have to make progress on that front. Many African countries have signed the Convention Against Corruption. But now we have to sort of make sure that we have mechanisms that work. And Western countries also must, come in, because most of the stolen money find its way into European or American banks. And that also is another issue. Sure. That's what the International Convention was all about. So we all have interests in fighting corruption worldwide. We call upon, the banking system also to be more open, to be more transparent, so we can even get the money back, which is an issue. I remember Nigeria years back trying to get billions of dollars back. It took it, 20 years and I think the process is not even completed. So that's require international effort. I do believe in international cooperation. I do think that we do have like-minded in all continents. And if we join forces, we might be able to make progress in our respective countries. That's what I believe in.
And talking about that now, if we could move from Senegal to the sort of broader sort of Pan-Africa thinking here. You just came off of the 10th Global Baku Forum. You were involved in a session entitled Geostrategic Importance of Africa, Opportunities and Challenges. The panel was led by someone actually I hosted on a show last year, President Aminata Touré from Mauritius. And, again, here I am, a poorly traveled American. I see Mauritius and Senegal, pretty far apart, but nonetheless part of the same continent and the same interest. You were in the session, once again, raising some of the issues with regard to what we're just talking about in terms of, hey, if we want economic growth, we got to deal with water, we have to deal with hunger, other crises. At the same time, amazing technology also happening on the continent, smart villages and cities popping up in different countries. Talk about the session, if you would, and a little bit about sort of with amongst these different ministers and presidents and heads of state that you hang out with and are friends with. What are some of the conclusions you came to per the Baku Forum?
Well, Baku is a little bit far from Dakar, right? So for me, it is also part of the network building that we need to put in all of us, all the like-minded. And as I said, Africa is most of the time seen as an add-on. And that I criticize that all the time, because Africa, there is so many opportunities that people don't see. We see them. 60% of arable land is in Africa, so the future of nutrition is going to be decided here in the country. We are the fastest growing middle class. 350 million people are middle class in Africa, so they're consumers. I can go on and on and on. So I think the rest of the world is just carrying very old cliche when it comes to Africa. Don't get me wrong, we also have our challenges. We see them, they're right here. But we have also so many opportunities. Young people are, coming back, leaving the diaspora, opening businesses. One of the most innovating economy in the world is Kenya, for instance, in terms of digitalization. They came in the ranking 46 out of 194. Nigeria is known also for its blooming, entrepreneurship culture. Young Africans are doing well in culture, music, technology worldwide. So I think the rest of the world need an update when it comes to Africa. Right? They have this very, very old cliche that they carries. And also one of my part of my work is to update them, I would say, and to show them that the continent, first of all, there is not one Africa. There is countries, which a lot of people, there are 54 countries, which a lot of people don't know. And I do also a lot of awareness raising in those type of meetings. And of course, I fight racism. That's one of really my commitment. I do believe that racism did so much harm to Africa. That we what I'm doing. And let me add also that when it comes to some issue that you are raising, gender equality worldwide, Africa is much more in advance. In Senegal, 48% of the parliament is made of women. 48%.
Wonderful.
So, we have to change the lens. The rest of the world is looking at us, and we have also to the rest of the world. But I see progress. I'm optimistic. We have to deal with some of the issues. For instance, eradicating poverty. That is something that we really need to focus on. Creating jobs on a massive scale, industrializing the continent. Of course, making sure that everything is inclusive, not to forget, different groups, people living with handicap, women, young people, rural, urban. And I think also we need to create our own way of developing ourselves. I don't believe that we need to replicate or duplicate the same models. I think we should be environment friendly. We should keep our culture. Our culture is very important. We have a culture of parenthood is important. Social links are very important, and which you guys are losing in the West. But here it's very, very important. You're never alone. You live with your grandma who is 80. And that's the way we live, and I enjoy it very much. So that also is something we have to make sure that we pass it on to the next generation. So Africa is not what you see on TV. So I invite everybody to come and visit. We do have, great things to show. We are developing. There are investment opportunities. The music and the food is great. We are working also on security. For instance, Dakar is one of the most secure cities in the world. So I think we need to do a better job when it comes to PR, public relations. I think we should invest much more. But I can attest, having been a New Yorker for a long time, that Dakar and Senegal and many places in Africa are great places to visit.
And I can attest. I'm sitting down the road from New York here in Philadelphia, so we have there's a nice amount of West African food here, so I can attest to that part as well. So, in terms of, I was reading that a couple of weeks ago, actually, in March 9th, the United Nations Commission on the Status of Women, the current Minister for Women, Family, and Protection of Children of Senegal, Minister Guillet, I'm sure I'm pronouncing that right, spotlighted the national strategy for digital transformation in Senegal. You were talking about digitalization in terms of fighting corruption. Talk a little just about innovation in general. I mean, you were mentioning, you don't want to just replicate some of the foreign STEM models. There's other things that, that are very unique to Senegal. Talk a little bit about, especially per your, the upcoming campaign and so forth, the role of innovation and technology in accomplishing some of these things you're talking about.
But I do believe in leapfrogging. I don't think we have to catch up very fast. So we have to use technology even more than you guys in the West, and that's what's going on. I was teaching, summer classes in McGill many years back, and when I told to my student that there is more smartphone in Africa than United States and Canada combined, I saw them rushing to Google to see what I'm saying, whether it was true. It's true. So that's what people don't know. So we use, phones like you guys. We use your computer. We do a great thing about it. We do commerce. We transfer money. We pay our bills. It's much more sometimes advanced than in the States or Europe, and I believe in that. Now we are also looking at using a technology for health purposes. To monitor pregnancies, to check on market prices in the villages. I'm talking, and that's how we're gonna do the leapfrogging, jump directly to modern times, and that's what is going on. Today, it's difficult to find a Senegalese person with no phone. I don't think it doesn't exist. So it also nicely fit into our culture. We socialize with the phone. I mean, you stay in touch with your family. You send them money. You organize yourself around chat groups like WhatsApp, etc. And we use also technology, and we adjust it to the way we live. But it saves time, it saves money, and it can save lives too. So for us, I would say it's not a luxury. It's a way of leapfrogging, meaning that you jump directly from a phase to a higher one with technology. And as I said, I am sort of a strong believer in digitalizing the administration. All state affairs should be, of course, safely digitalized, and that will have a big impact on fighting corruption, on reducing corruption. Because corruption means that you see me, I see you, we talk, kickbacks under the table thing, etc. But when it's digitalized, it really helps. So I think it's very important. Using also technology for health purposes and for education. For education, it's very important that we make sure, especially for very remote areas, where children could be taught from distance, that was there was test about it during COVID time. And that's the way forward. I think all of that is being developed. As I said, there are very much investment opportunities. They're here, especially in the area of technology. And young Senegalese and young African are also very smart, in that business, and they're making also progress. I think Africa must be the one in digital banking as we speak. That is also something that people don't know. But we use technology on our day-to-day basis. There might not be a road, to go to the village, but you arrive there and you find people with smartphone and sending money or asking for the market prices and et cetera, et cetera. So we do have also, all this software to book your taxi, your cab, to do any sort of thing. So that's what we do. I think we use it even more than you guys do.
Probably. And I like the theme of leapfrogging, of course, because we are at a very interesting point with technology where that's possible for, as you're saying, for entire countries. So that's exciting. So as mentioned in the intro, not just former Justice Minister, not just former Prime Minister, the second to hold that role as a woman. Now you are heading to be the first female president of the country. 2024 elections coming up. Introduce us a little bit to the world of the Senegalese politics, presidential campaigning. I've read a little bit in the news here about issues in the National Assembly that got you kind of mad, and now you're going one step further. But take us to your presidential campaign, if you would.
Well, I have to give you a little bit of context before that.
Please.
President Macky Sall, who is the sitting president, is completing his second term. But he want to sort of twist he want to do a third term, to make it clear, which would be illegal. But it seems like he wanna carry on. So that's the situation we find ourselves in, unfortunately. 10 years back, himself, he fought against former President Abdoulaye Wade, who wanted a third term. Yeah. He pressed on, President Wade, and President Macky Sall won. But unfortunately, 10 years down the road, he's doing the same thing. So that is very disappointing. So I used to be as you know, his prime minister. Yep. I headed both his campaign in 2012 and 2022. Actually, I was the head list for the legislative elections. So I was elected as a member of parliament, but I did disagree because I told him, Mr. President, you need to respect the constitution, which he didn't like. So I wasn't elected as Speaker of the House. And later on, since I carry on my belief that he should be respecting the constitution, he made me expel illegally from the parliament. Right. Said, well, Mr. President, you don't want me to be the speaker. As a matter of fact, I would like to sit on your chair, which is being president. So I will be running in February, and I will be mobilizing young people and women. And I come up with, an alternative program, an innovative program, and I hope to be elected next year.
Well, I hope this show goes a little bit towards increasing awareness and the movement towards that happening. I mean, you have obviously an amazing background to run the country at the level of president, and just your focus on, as I mentioned in sort of the quote at the beginning, just more decent lives per your mission is just, it's a little bit about what our show is all about, better tomorrows. And I think it's just a great story, and, really wishing you the best with the campaign. And any final messages about Senegal, about Africa, other things that we should know, once again, sitting here on the East Coast of the United States, please take the floor.
Well, I sort of advise you to be more curious about what's going on in Africa. Don't just stay at the level of, the news. Of course, the news, they would pick up what would raise sort of emotion. Africa is a very diverse place. It's a large place with a lot of intellectual activities, a lot of investment opportunities, great cultures. As I said, it's very important to know. Great way of living. We have also our challenges. We know that we still, as I said, needs to raise the living standards, of people, women, children, people living with disability, etc. We are aware of those challenges and we are working on it. But that's a great place to visit. So that's a great place to make business. That's a great place to come and discover great foods and great music. So that's my invitation to all your listeners. And we look forward to building bridges, because I do believe that the world we live in, we need to get out of our comfort zone, and find other people's comfort zone, and then we create sort of a human civilization and we take it to the next level. That's what I believe in.
Outstanding message. For everybody that is going to be listening to this particular episode of our show across the various podcast networks or watching on our YouTube channel, again, you've been listening to the Honorable Dr. Aminata Touré, 2024 presidential candidate for the country of Senegal. Dr. Touré, I want to thank you again for taking the time out of your schedule to come talk to us for a little while, to educate us on these topics. Obviously, thank you for everything you're doing. And as we like to say on our show, thanks for helping to create a better tomorrow for so many people out there via what you do. And I'll just try out, and I'll skewer it a bit here, but I'm going to try out my Wolof. Babanin Mangidem.
Yeah,
Great, thank you.
See you next.